Welcome to Careless Coder. Today we will have a look at Brigitte Godot. Godot game engine. Motherfucker! Yes, I'm back! I'm just like herpes. I keep coming back. Yeah, even a little surgery on my heart doesn't put me out. And the great thing was about this surgery, I had some time to actually read the book on Godot 4. I bought this book. And after reading the first chapter, I was like, I can actually build one of my beloved tile-based puzzle games. I usually, when I build a game, it's a puzzle game or a strategic game. So yeah, I figured let's create Sokoban, but then call it Pirate Ban. So I started up Godot and started figuring it out with the documentation online. I don't do tutorials. I hate following tutorials of people. Sometimes I watch a tutorial just to get a concept across, but then I trust on the documentation, which especially is good with Godot 4, it being so new. And I knocked the game out in Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon in about 8 hours with all the learning and figuring stuff out and playing around with graphics because I like graphics. Yeah, so let's jump in and have a look at my Sokoban clone called Pirate Ban. Sokoban was created in 1980, I believe. And the goal is to get all these chests on these exits. Now let me set this one back to level 1, because level 6 I still have to solve myself. So you can push chests, you cannot pull them, and you need to push them on all these exits. And then you progress to solve all of them. Oh, that one was wrong, but yeah, you get the gist, right? So now the main thing of this game is that all these levels are generated from text files. I see a lot of people, I don't know what it is, and that's why I think that watching tutorials is a bad thing, because the majority of the people just code these levels tile by tile in the playfield. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to create a tile map and actually add those? Just get them from text and just generate those runtime. So that will be the main takeaway for the people that already know Godot, how I approach this. But for the people that don't know Godot, Godot is a game engine and it basically has scenes. Scenes for Unity people are prefabs. So you can instantiate this scene treasure within my game. Same with player, the same with door. We already saw in the game that we have treasure chests, doors and players. Now you have different types of objects, like an area 2D is something that physics doesn't work on. You have to move them yourself, which is perfectly fine for a grid-based game. There of course are things that are physics-based, like physics, rigid body 2D, for example, character body 2D. You have all these extensive physics bodies, physics body 2D, but we don't need them. But we do need collision detection, because I'm not going to actually use the tile map, which you could do, which is what I would usually do, but I wanted to see how raycasting worked. So I used raycasting here to actually see if a tile is empty. But usually you would just query the playfield and just read a note and see what is there before moving to it. If there is a nice little empty tile, you will move to it, and otherwise you won't. But I used raycasts because I read the documentation and I use raycasts in a little shooter that I did a couple of years back in Unity. And I read this, that you can enable visible collisions, visible paths, and you can actually debug your raycasts. So you now see the dark blue, that is the stuff that you collide with. And you see a tiny little red arrow. I will make it blue. This is my ray, so I cast it into the next tile to see if there's an object. If there is an object, I need to act appropriately. So if it's a wall, I should not be able to move. So I won't move. But if it is a chest, it will actually move the chest, and when the chest moves, the player also moves. So it is red, but yeah, because I tell him to move the chest and the player. And this was something that I was very, very impressed with, that this is already part, let's disable the music, already part of the UI, that you just set this where was it? Debug. I'm very impressed with Godot, yeah. So let's quickly go over these objects, because the logic is really simple. You cannot just push when there are two chests, then you cannot push them, or when the chest is against a wall. So yeah, let's first have a look at the treasure chests. It's also an area to the object, because we do the physics. And we have a set grip position. This is a function that I have on all of them. But I did not do any inheritance or composition because, well, the logic is different, so I would need to override them anyways. So there was no need to actually make an interface. So we allow tween to be used, true or false. If not, then we just plonk the thing on a grid, which is done during the loading. And otherwise we're in game, and then we call with the use tween true, and it will actually tween. And this was something I was very, very impressed with Godot, because usually animating stuff it's a bit tricky, especially when they're not physics bodies. But I read the documentation, tween, and I go like, oh, you can create a tween. You say which property you want to tween, the start position, the end position, and the time, and it just does it. So that is the sliding movement that you see. That is the tween. As you saw, we're not snapping right to the next grid, but we're sliding actually over in the same when we push a chest. That is the tweening. Now the door is completely simple, because we just set it and we just check in the main whether the door is the door and a chest are on the same location. Then the player, well, the player is a bit more involved, but even then I don't like putting business logic on objects. I see a lot of people doing, for example, shooting a projectile and having a lot of business logic on that projectile. The projectile has one thing, that is move, hit a target, and notify that a target is hit, which target. And then what I do is everything is done in a game state loop where we manage the actual business logic. So don't fall for that trap. There's a lot of bad tutorials that actually teach you that. Anyways, the player, very simple. We just do the UI up and down. So those are the arrow keys that we then use, because I don't have a controller on my Mac anyways. I did create 2 custom input maps. One for the R, because the R, you will get yourself into a pickle. For example, if you do this, we have the R and the escape mapped, so remember the escape for later on. But you can push yourself into a pickle by doing this, and you can never ever move this treasure chest out. I'm not checking whether this is a deadlock situation. It's a learning thing, so just press R and you will do it. It will restart. And you'll also see that the background tiles are just randomly generated. Same with the wall tiles. That's kind of cool. Right, so, and the escape, that is the end. I just pressed escape and we just quit it. Now, since it's not a physics process, we don't do anything in the process. So you can basically remove this, but it comes with the template that is generated as soon as you say create a script. Just let it be there. Enable game input true and false, so we can stop input from the user. which is very useful in case of, for example, the level is cleared, then you should not be able to move. The move animation, yeah, we used the tween here within the set grid position. But here I created a dedicated function. You actually see me disabling the movement here and enabling it further on again. Because I call it twice here. In this case, we first need to, when we push a treasure, and the treasure is also signaling that it has no collision. So then we say, move that treasure over. So tween the, oh, what is happening? Tween that treasure, move it to a different grid position. And then move myself, the animation. So I use it twice, and otherwise this is when there is nothing or there is a door, because we can move over doors, of course. Then we have that same tween movement. So hence I created a function. Well, the door is very simple, doesn't really do anything. Then we go to the start screen, which is actually something that I really adore. So this screen, this image, by the way, I used an AI to generate. Yes, I am a visual effects artist. I can do 2D matte paintings, but that means cloning from existing images. And I can do compositing of different images. I'm not a drawer per se. I'm terrible at drawing. But AI is really good at it, so I said, generate an image of a pirate looking contentedly at his pirate ship standing on the beach with palm trees. Well, there you are. So that is this texture rectangle. And then we have a panel that lays over top of it. That is why it is a bit black. This is another panel, gets a bit more black or less opaque. And this UI system is so intuitive for me, because it is exactly the same as they do it in Qt. And I did a lot of C++ with Qt. So when I saw the layout, like, oh, you have these containers, and then you have things that can span all over the stuff. So the full rectangle here. Oh, then I can make a UI. I'm sure there's great documentation of this, but for me this was very, very self-explanatory. The same with this button. Like, okay, yeah, there's this nice button. Button use signals. So you can see that over here. There's a signal in there. So if we click on this button, we see, oh, we go up a couple of levels. So up, 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 up. So we're all the way at the start. And we call on button pressed. So on button pressed, that's here. Yeah, we get the tree and we change the scene to the game scene, which is the main scene. Yeah, and there we are. This is the game scene. This is where the magic happens. Usually that's in my bedroom, but now it's over here. The most important function here is read the level, because that will set up the level. And we have 6 levels currently, 1 through 6, that we read through, and we just create that map runtime. And that for you Godot guys is perhaps the main takeaway, or the Godot beginners. So let's go back. Okay. So we read the level. I set the steps back to 0 because every time we do a new level we want to count the steps that the pirate takes. We create 2 local variables x and y, so we know which tile we're actually looping through. And we first delete all the old objects. So I get all the children, and if they're a treasure or a door, so those are these 2, I want to keep saying prefabs, scenes, then we delete them, because otherwise they would spawn and lay around and soil the scene, of course. Always good to clean after yourself. Then we do clear the tiles. So here, clear the tiles. We have a playfield that is a maximum of 30 by 15. As you can see, this is 30 and this is 15. So you have a lot of puzzle space, and it automatically scales. That is the cool thing about Godot. No issue whatsoever there. Well, the same with Unity. It's not a Godot thing. Yeah, so we set an empty background tile. So these tiles, these beige tiles, they are background tiles. And if you see when I press the R to reload or restart this level, you can see that they changed. And the same with walls. So I have a set of empty tiles which come from the playfield. So here we have the atlas 1,2, 1,2, 2,2, that's that one, etc., etc. So it's these 4 tiles are picked randomly for the background, and for the walls we have these 4 tiles. So if I pick this one, 2,1, that is this. Yeah, and this atlas is automatically created on the playfield when you say, okay, I have a tile map and these are 32 by 32 pixel. It's so self-explanatory. I did not even read it in the book yet. Maybe it is not even in there because I'm at chapter 2 and I already done the game and I'm like, yeah, I can make my puzzle games. I love puzzle games. I can do that. That's how good Godot is. Yeah, so that is clearing the tiles. So we just clear the background tiles. So we make a scene that just has all these tiles and we put these other tiles on top of him. So the walls are basically on top of a ground tile. Doesn't need to be, but yeah. In case of the pirate it's important because as soon as we move from the starting position you see the other one, and the same with the treasure. The treasure should already have been placed on top of a tile. So then we check for the level files. Check level files. Where is it? Check level files here. This is basically error handling. So we return a file access pointer when we can actually find the file. The file is based on the level property. So the level property is currently level 1. So we're looking for levels underneath the levels here. Level 1. And that is this file that we just saw. So these are the characters that we have. Actually, let me use this one. A dot or anything but these W, P, T, D, and B is interpreted as an empty tile, as one of those. The W is a wall. The P is the pirate. The T is a treasure. The D is a door. And the B is a door with a treasure already on there. You can see that in level 3. We will show that in a second. Right? So let's go to the game logic. So basically, if we get a file pointer, this one actually tripped me up a bit. I read the documentation. You can quit the game. So if we cannot find this file, there is no need, or if the level is less than 0, there is no need for us to check. So just exit the game. Similarly, if we don't have a file pointer, then yeah, something terribly went wrong. We need to quit. So I found this in the documentation. I put it in there, and the game didn't quit. Took me about 15 minutes to figure out. I think that this is deferred, because I called it with the start. I don't know, but I called it elsewhere, the quit. And there I did not do the return, but it was the last statement of a function. So I think it's deferred after the function. So as soon as I did the return null, it worked. Those are the little quirky things that you need to learn of a new framework. So we have a valid file pointer, cool. Then we read until the end of the file, and we start by reading a line, and then we go character for character through that line. So if we find a W, then we put on the play field on that cell where X and Y, so we're incrementing for each position the X and the Y. So we put a wall there. If it is a D, we will actually put a door there. So that is an instance. So you actually see that we're instantiating an object. We add it as a child. Hence we also need to delete them if we move to the next level. But similarly, if we have a B stands for both. That is both a door and a treasure. and they need to be spawned in this order. You first need to spawn a door, and then on top of it a treasure that has to do with collision detection. Even if you have the Z index of the treasure higher, so you would still see it. For the raycast, it's imperative that this is the order. Yeah, and if it's a P, we instantiate the player on that position. That's really simple. Right, so in the ready, I set my properties to the game references. So this is the playfield object, this one, the player object. Now the reason why I do this is as soon as you change these names, you only need to change them here. Otherwise, you have, well, here the UI, that's where I forgot it, right? So if I change the UI once, the name, then, fuck, I need to update everything. So that's also the reason why you want a global game manager. Right, the button that toggles the music on and off, that is this little thing. The delete objects we already had. And then on button press, that is actually for the next level. So if we clear this level, right, that is this button. So we increment the level and we read that level where we just saw that logic. So it will build up a new one, and we will enable the UI, disable the UI cleared again. So that one is gone. And we're happy to play the next round. So yeah, that is how simple actually the way the game is laid out. The heavy lifting is done with the 2D collision detection. And like I said, I really love that fact that we can actually see them here with the arrows. That is something that I had to do in other game engines myself. Draw these arrows that you can see. Yeah, I'm very impressed with Godot, so I probably will make some more puzzle games because I love puzzle games. And this is something I need to actually fix because I should not be able to move when the level is cleared. But I'll fix that before the video gets uploaded. So there you have it. I created a Sokoban clone in about 8 hours in Godot. And I'm very impressed with Godot. It's a lovely lightweight game engine that can do anything really. Well, most things. We have to stay real. What I was a little bit disappointed about was the fact that C# currently does not allow to be exported to WebAssembly. And those tiny puzzle games that I make and the abstract strategy games are ideal to be exported into WebAssembly and run in a browser, of course. But I'm sure that they will actually fix that very soon. And then with the GD extensions, you can use Rust, you can use C++, C#, it's going to be amazing. Swift is recently added. Now I don't like Swift, but if you like Swift, then you can use that language as well in Godot. So I think Godot is going places. And I love the lightweight of it, 100 megabytes compared to Unreal, which was 4 gigabytes or something. I used Unreal a couple of years back for some 2D effects, shaders that I created for a movie, visual effects, to actually comp over some elements. And the compile times are really, really long in Unreal. And with Godot, especially when you use GDScript, because if you use C# you still need to compile, but GDScript you just press play and it works instantly. So you can iterate really, really quickly. Now the main takeaway for people that already use Godot but create levels a block at a time and have all these objects in their object tree, I think my way of actually reading it from a text file, creating your tile map that way, is probably the better way to do it. A lot less code, a lot less tedious moving around of bricks, etc. And you can iterate without actually changing your code base. So I hope you learned something and see you in the next one. And the next one may be very interesting. I got a GameCube coming my way. So we're going to have a look at the GameCube. And I want to mod it in the way that we can actually use backed up games. And the way that they currently do it is with an RP2040 that we actually did the Zig Simon Says on. And I got these tiny ones. And I figured let's try and use this tiny one, see if that actually works. And if we need to change the code that comes from this PyBoot thing. So yeah, I hope you learned something and see you in the next one. We are back, baby.